empowering the players, all these clicks. So Pete Carroll came out yesterday and said, we got way too many clicks in this locker room. And what did you see 2 months ago that I didn't see and nobody else saw? And you were saying it, and people were saying, Whitlock, you're stirring stuff up, you're being political. You called out what Pete said yesterday.
It's not about football in Seattle. And at the end of the day, you're being paid millions of dollars to go win a championship and football. And the values that have always been in football and in sports about coming together despite our differences, leaving politics out of this, and let's just do our job. Michael Bennett and Doug Baldwin invited all of that into the Seattle locker room. And again, there's always been this racial politics around Russell Wilson that comes from that locker room. And I can remember at one point early in the year, Richard Sherman was saying, oh, man, Russell Wilson was down for us. And, you know, this is the first time. And they were talking about Russell Wilson in a way that had nothing to do with football and had everything to do with racial identity politics. And I'm like, this just isn't going to last.
By the way, shouldn't Pete know? Like when I got into this business, they always told me 30 years ago, don't talk politics. It's too divisive. Well, Pete's now saying our locker room's divided. Well, wouldn't it be if you invited politics into a locker room?
Again, I go back to this and I say for Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr, they need to be careful. Again, you're being celebrated in the media for talking politics.
Yeah, don't buy into Twitter's love for you.
Right. But does it work long time in a work environment and work setting where the goal is for everybody to put their differences aside
and unite.
And let's just focus on this job, winning a championship? And again, I know we live in this era where, and it's appropriate, there are things bigger than sports going on.
Sure.
But do you have to address those things in your work environment?
Of course. That's a great point, Jay. I've said this before. I don't talk politics. I made a decision 2 years ago. I wasn't going to become one of these Trump bashers. I didn't vote for him, but I'm not going to bash him because half my audience voted for him. I know certain things are bigger than sports, but I'm not a life caster. I'm a sports caster. So when I come into work, I keep my picket signs outside. My job is to do a sports radio show. That doesn't mean I can't use an analogy. I use analogies often and metaphors. But to your point, we all know cancer is bigger than football, but not for 3 hours on Sunday. It's not.
Or the 3 hours you're hosting this show.
Right.
And so, again, I look at Michael Bennett and I look at Seattle, and there's a victim mentality. Oh, I'm oppressed. I'm a victim. And that just doesn't play in sports. The whole thing, the foundation of sports is I'm not a victim, and the people in this locker room will determine our fate. It's not about outsiders. It's not about the obstacles thrown in front of us. We can overcome them together. But again, when you let the Michael Bennett's and the Doug Baldwins, and I saw them early in the year, they're on CNN.
No, you mentioned this. Listen, this was like week 3. You kept telling me on and off the air, this Seattle thing's going to implode. It's imploded.
And again, I go to Jacksonville and see Michael Bennett and them have a fight on the field. Then I see the Quentin Jefferson fighting with fans off the field and taking his helmet off. And then in the locker room, Michael Bennett's yelling out to all the reporters, he's just a man. He's a human being. Talk to him like a human being, a man. And I'm just, he sounds like a victim and a wimp and someone that is just not the football warrior mentality. And I know, and again, I've made this argument, don't speak for yourself, that it's like masculinity is under attack in America. But you know, we need to understand how we got here. Why is America number one? And there was some really nasty masculine things that went on.
Somebody's got to build the bridges.
Yeah, and we've been the bad guy a few times and done some things. And again, that's not caping up for them, but again, man, the world's a jungle. And you know, we try to make it more complicated than that. But there are certain things in all animals and in human nature that just aren't going to be denied. And we keep thinking we're going to fix them and everybody's going to be perfect. Well, no, they're not.
So I have been really tough on Mike Tomlin. And I have said this franchise is not buttoned up. I actually think he's had a very good week. After the Patriots game, even though we see it as a bad week for him, he came out and he said things like, I'm not a replay official. And then a couple days ago, he said, yeah, of course I give Big Ben some leeway. And Big Ben, meanwhile, has gone to the podium twice and has given me this kind of route. It's a very confusing, complex route. And I think Tomlin this week has been a little more authentic. I don't think he's the best game coach in the league and the most buttoned-up guy. But let's go back to the last 30 seconds of that game. And you've been a defender of Big Ben since I've known you. In fact, I think he's your favorite player in the league.
Yes.
And you've been clobbering him this week.
I think I'm getting a new narrative on Big Ben in terms of, not a new acceptance. Big Ben, I think, among a lot of players, have always thought he's a bit of a drama king.
Yes,
he likes to limp back on the field and look what I've overcome. And any other man would be dead, but I'm out here leading the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I've heard that,
and so that's what we're seeing now. He loves to be in the middle of drama, and at this point, I think he has spent the last 2 years pointing a finger at Mike Tomlin and Todd Haley. And I think this week he's getting exposed that, no, you're actually the problem. These guys are operating correctly. You're trying to fight some long political war, perhaps with the front office. You want your narrative proven right that, Tomlin and Haley aren't running things properly. Big Ben right now is the problem.
He had a panic attack on the field.
Yeah.
14 years in the league,
he
Jason.
Choked. He choked.
In that moment, Big Ben choked. And I hate that word, but he looked panicked.
He's not owning it, which just bothers me. And again, the guy I played the Mid-American Conference, he played the Mid-American Conference. John Elway's my favorite player. He plays like John Elway. I love the guy. But he looks very weak this week.
He does.
And it's making me take a step back and go, he's part of the problem. If he leaves this league with 2 Super Bowls, he may have to point the finger at himself, not the people around him.
No, I told you yesterday, it's kind of a seismic shift for me. I've always been, Ben's leading him, and Tomlin, he's an emotional guy. But this week, I kind of look at Ben and go, some of these rumors I denied, I think they're true.
I think Mike Tomlin's had a great year. You're reducing it to this week.
I
think he's had a great year. They were in position to take home field advantage. They're right there. Big Ben blew it for them. They were in position to control this and get to a Super Bowl. This was going to be, I think, Tomlin's 3rd time getting to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It was going to be a great year for him. One guy blew it, and he won't own it. Disappointing.
Jason Whitlock, speak for yourself later today. Coming up next, what if Aaron Rodgers retired today? Just think about it for a second. Second surgery, he's not going to. But what if